press conference by the Yoruba Liberation Command, and the title is "This House Has Fallen, Too Late for Restructuring. Yoruba Self-Determination Now, Our Fatherland, Our Blood." This address is delivered on Thursday, July 27th, by the Yoruba Liberation Command, YOLICOM, at the World Press Conference held at International Press Center, IPC, Ogba, Lagos State. Gentlemen and ladies of the Fourth Estate of the Realm, we are glad to welcome you to this conference. On behalf of Yoruba Liberation Command, YOLICOM, we are compelled by the prevailing political circumstances to take a stand on the state of Nigeria as affects the future of over 50 million Yoruba people spread across the world. You will recall that since 2014, when Nigeria was amalgamated at gunpoint, the country has been thrown into one turmoil or the other. For over a century, Nigeria has failed to meet the international benchmark of socio-political and economic development. The only references to Nigeria's grandeur were the striking achievements of the then three regions of West, East, and the North. Since the collapse of federalism and the three tiers founded to a large extent on the civilization and values of ethnic configuration in the country, Nigeria has remained in the tunnel of misery, pangs, and pains, including the fact that the country was plunged into an unavoidable civil war that took no fewer than 1 million lives. Since the end of the war, millions of Nigerians, as individuals and collectively as a society, have continued to wage and fight wars of survival, characterized by extreme hunger and lack of the essentials of life, like housing, good water, shelter, electricity, health, and drinkable water. It has been most traumatic for the Yoruba nation, which between 1953 and 1966 raised one of the most advanced political economies in Africa and in the entire black world, pairing on the same level with many countries in Europe by the standard of the time. The Yoruba educational, cultural, political institutions were not only some of the best in Africa. The then Western region gave hope to the entire black world with the highest human development index in Africa by the rating of the UNDP. The destruction of regional system of government has turned Nigeria into a unitary state, dotted by a savage culture of corruption, ineptitude, inefficiency, moral degradation, deaths, violent crimes, and now violent religious extremism. The so-called democracy is nothing but the imposition of individual will through an orchestrated mass corruption where the poverty of the voters are exploited for electoral gains by politicians seeking political offices. Democracy is about the interests of the few elected people and their cronies. Democracy is now government of the party, for the party leaders and by the party members. Since 1914, the recurrent question has been, should Nigeria remain one or not? Should the bottled-up energies free and liberate themselves from the shackles of misery, the fetters of iron and the muddiness of agony, or should they remain in eternal servitude? The question has come up again in the past few months with various groups making demands. You will agree with us that the self-determination groups in the Yoruba nation are the engine of our history today. We have the largest population with which all the members of the main political parties in Yoruba land combined together cannot equal. Our members are not in this movement for personal gains, like we have in the political parties. Our members are in these organizations to make sacrifices and if necessary lay down their lives for the Yoruba nation. We wish to announce to this important gathering that we in YOLICOM, representing some of the finest leaders of self-determination groups from across the Yoruba nation, have weighed the options extensively. For the past 3 months, We have been consulting with all the Yoruba self-determination groups, meeting poor and malnourished Yoruba people, talking to our people in the villages, towns, and on the hills and mountains, in the rural communities of the Yoruba nation. In the light of the foregoing, and in response to the occurrences of Nigeria of the past few months, including but not limited to the releases, utterances, and comments of certain groups representing the Igbo nation in Nigeria, IPOB, meaning the indigenous people of Biafra, Movement for the Actualization of the Sovereign State of Biafra, MASOB, among others, to the effect that they desire to leave Nigeria and cease to be called Nigerian. And certain groups representing the Arewa, people of northern Nigeria, to the effect that the Igbo people should vacate the territory of northern Nigeria before October 1st, 2017. That will support the aspirations of the Igbo nation irrespective of the unfortunate hate speeches, infantile, savage utterances of a certain Nnamdi Kanu, who appears to have singled out the Yoruba nation for ridicule and revulsion. We take solace in the fact that we work with many better exposed, principled and conscientious Igbo leaders who have the richer sense of history and understand better the complex nature of nation building, and who also realize the importance of alliances, networking in statesmanship, and international friendship and solidarity. We look forward to a viable and mutual relationship with the future Igbo nation based on cordial respect within the framework of international best practices. We observe the panic measures of the government, which has been to attack proponents of self-determination and even exterminate them. We also know the setting up of a committee to handle the issue of restructuring, as led by the governor of Kaduna State, Malam El-Rufai. Our declarations. The Yoruba Liberation Command, YOLICOM, the core of the authentic representatives and defenders of the values, rights and demands of the Yoruba indigenous people, rejects the deceitful and self-serving tactics of the Nigerian political leadership and extension of the Fulani oligarchy. We now make the following declaration. That what we want as a people is Oduduwa Republic. We have no apology for this. That the Yoruba people wish to see an end to the over 100 years of bitter acrimony, ethnic rivalry, savage killings, blackmail of the Yoruba nation by some recalcitrant ethnic groups, heart-rate killings, for which forced millions of our people to stop going to farms, and the excruciating burden of coming from a country with the stigma of terrorism. That our people have endured for a century the misery of Nigeria, her destruction of our values, and the inestimable cultural genocide inflicted on our heritage by the rogue Nigerian country. It is time for the Yoruba nation to exit from this axis of evil. That we totally reject the idea of restructuring as proposed by the Nigerian state and the political elites. It's an attempt to restructure Nigeria on their own terms and not on the terms of the people. Nigeria will never be genuinely restructured by the present crop of political leaders who are themselves beneficiaries of the same skewed system. That even if the country will be restructured, it will still pass through the National Assembly, which was created during the era of military rule of the Fulani, to ensure an upper hand for the Fulani North. The National Assembly is an organ of the Fulani and their agents, so also is the Nigerian military, which has continuously been used to repress, intimidate, and humiliate Nigerians. Nigeria has become a burden on Yoruba people. We suddenly have been exposed to unimaginable threats of violence, wiping off entire families through clubbing to death, kidnapping of women and adults, savage killings, kidnap of school children, rape of infants, stealing of public wealth, and the public display of the stolen wealth with arrogance by the criminals. The complete annihilation and confrontation of the poor people by the Nigerian state and many other ills that were hitherto strange to our long-lasting ancient civilization and values. By these policies and material relations, the Nigerian state, with our ruinous game, is breeding a disastrous crop of younger generation of people in Yoruba land. This is unacceptable to us. that any referendum at this time will swing on the side of the corrupt and irresponsible political class who continue to use ill-gotten public wealth to bribe, influence, manipulate elections and all institutions of politics and the economy. Democracy itself has become an element for all forms of crooks and criminals to seek legitimacy to continue to rape the people and steal their resources in the most brazen, inhuman, primitive, and callous manner. A developed country can never emerge out of the carriage of elections for form and content of Nigerian version of representative government. That we hereby and here display the proposed flag of the Yoruba nation as a symbol of mobilization of our long-suffering people out of the huge slum and prison called Nigeria, a country built and sustained by corruption, bloodshedding, malicious damages, and total contempt for humanity. That the entire proposed Yoruba nation lies almost completely within the trough encompassed by the River Niger to the north and east, River Volta to the west, and the long stretch of the Atlantic Ocean to the south. This geographic space more or less roughly describes the totality of the area occupied by Yoruba people over the extent of our known history. This includes stretches of land from the west at the borders of Togo, through Benin Republic to the delta end of Warri in the creeks of the Niger Delta, between longitudes 2 degrees 30 minutes east and 6 degrees 30 minutes east. The upper sweep commences from the Atlantic Ocean coastlines up to the immediate westerly bend of the Niger River, below the confluence, between latitude 6 degrees north and 9 degrees north. That we assert our right to self-determination as espoused in Article 3 of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which recognizes indigenous peoples' right to self-determination, which includes the right to freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. Article 4 affirms indigenous peoples' rights to autonomy or self-government in matters relating to their internal and local affairs. And Article 5 protects their right to maintain and strengthen their distinct political, legal, economic, social, and cultural institutions. Article 26 states that indigenous peoples have the right to the lands, territories, and resources which they are traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise used or acquired, and direct states to give legal recognition to this territory. We in Yolicom totally agree with the desire and demand of the Igbo to vacate Nigeria. It is within their inalienable rights to so demand. We shall do all within our powers to assist and encourage the Igbo to achieve this. In the same vein, we agree that the Arewa groups are within their rights to demand that all Igbo should vacate their territories within the time frame given. As the deadline approaches, we see the threat being actualized. We also see the quick notice as also directed against the Yoruba people. There are about 6.5 million Yoruba in the 17 northern states, minus Kwara and Kogi states. We only urge the international community to recognize that this expulsion order, however, has automatically grouped every other southerner or non-Muslim northerner together in the order, because there is no verifiable way to differentiate between the Igbo and the Yoruba, between the Igbo and the Dibio, Efik, Urobo, Ishekiri, Ijo, the northern Yoruba of Kwara and Kogi. The Igbo do not carry a mark on their heads, identify them as such. Therefore, this is an expulsion order to all southerners and people of the Middle Belt by the core north of Northwest and Northeast. By this order, the North has automatically asked its people resident in the South to vacate the south of Nigeria. To vacate the south of Nigeria and go back home to the North. Southerners, and especially Yoruba people, resident in any part of the North, are advised and encouraged to come back home to Yoruba land, where they are guaranteed 100% protection of their lives, limbs, and properties. It is important you do not fall victim to the wholesale slaughters, massacres, and all the horrendously horrible things the Hausa Fulani are known for. If we are to judge by past experiences, in the confines of Yoruba land, they dare not try any of these crimes because they know we have the antidote to their madness. We hereby repudiate, repeal, and destroy the amalgamation promulgation of 1914, bringing the peoples of Nigeria together by fiat, and the time has come for this. We hereby assert the right of the Yoruba people to self-determination. This desire will be pursued using all local and international instruments until the sovereign nation of Oduduwa Republic is realized within the shortest possible time.